Right, Amita. In fact, this incident is said to have taken place on Saturday evening. The identified caretaker that we're talking about here is the 40-year-old man named Anji. In fact, he lived in the nearby Hakipeki colony, which is near Bannerghatta, and he had taken up the post of caretaker just a week ago, that is just earlier this month, on a temporary basis because a senior official guard was on leave, and that was the only reason he had taken up this job. Now, remember, he has been employed in Bannerghatta Zoo for a very long time, and it was just a week into his job, and this incident has taken place. And remember the enclosure that we are talking about, he had gone there to play meat and also to close the gate of the safari one. This particular enclosure that we're talking about is home to at least 3 tigers that has about 3 gates, one which opens into the safari. Every morning this particular gate is opened for animals to leave the enclosure and close once they return in the evening. And on Saturday at about 5:30 p.m., Anji went into this particular enclosure to feed the tigers, and also he went to check if they had returned from the safari area. But however, he delayed. He did not, in fact, he forgot to close the gate, is what we're given to understand. And that is when one of the white tigers, the cub, attacked and dragged him out of the safari area. But one of the staff, the forest staff in the vicinity, heard his cries but could not be of much help because one of the tigers had dragged him completely out of the safari area. But we're given to understand that this is the second time this kind of an incident has taken place in the Bannerghatta Biological Park. Remember, just about last month we did see how white tiger had died after a fight with 2 other Royal Bengal tigers. Now, coming back to the recent story, what we are given to understand by the forest officials is that he was inexperienced. That could be one of the reasons that had led to his death, and the police officers, the Banerghatta police station, have registered an unnatural death into this particular case.
Shrija, you pointed out that this is not the first incident. There's been another incident earlier as well. Is there a statement of sorts that is being issued now by the national park?
Well, an investigation has already been initiated by the Bannerghatta police station, but we do given to understand that the forest officials are not in a position to address the media because, remember, the investigation is still on and they cannot comment on that as far as that is concerned. But we also understanding that in fact, the Principal Chief Conservator of Forest, Anu Reddy, had clearly pointed out the fact that the park authorities should have some standard operating procedures to tackle such incidents. Well, this is not the first time we see an incident like this. A few months ago, we saw how another caretaker, Krishna, identified as Krishna, was attacked by 2 lions after he left the side door of the cage open. And this particular recent case where Anji was also mauled to death is also something similar, where he had forgotten to lock the enclosure gate. And clearly, what's going by Anu Reddy, the Principal Chief Conservator of Forest, is saying, he clearly points out to the fact that the authorities should have a standard operating procedure to tackle such situations. But
also, Shrija, take us through what these procedures are in the first place, because you pointed out that in this incident, there was one person who heard the cries, but he could not do much.
Right, Amita. In fact, the procedures that we're talking about, remember, the first thing, the lapse here is, however, it is not confirmed. What we understand from our sources that this particular person, Anji, was inexperienced and he was brought in only in temporary basis. Well, we understand this is not the first time a case like this has taken place. The operational managers over there at the forest should have been a little more careful to tackle such incidents, considering similar incidents has taken place earlier as well. Remember, we're talking about how Anji was driving the tigers back to the cage after feeding them when one of them, in fact, attacked him. Clearly, he was inexperienced, is what we're given to understand, and definitely an investigation into this has